It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And coming up in just a few moments, we are scheduled to catch up with NBC Sports play-by-play man Mike Tirico. He is going to be calling us, which is always fun because then we get to do the hey, we're waiting game. But Mike's a pro. He'll be calling us any moment now. So we are waiting for Tirico here in just a moment. I actually got the idea to have Mike on. Obviously, this time of year, we're trying to get so many different voices on the show. And I was watching highlights of JJ McCarthy, and it's kind of funny because Michigan wound up having some of the Big Ten games on NBC this year, and Tirico called one or two, and then my guy Noah Eagle called one or two, and with Mike, he also happens to actually live in Ann Arbor. So while it's funny because he is obviously I know Mike and have for years because he's a Syracuse guy. He actually lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and so he has certainly been aware of JJ McCarthy and has certainly been watching him both professionally but also personally for a number of years. So I want to get Mike's take, and he just was on and then disappeared. So I guess Mike is Mike call back in a second. But I wanted to get Mike's take on that. And then the other big thing with Mike is, calling Sunday Night Football as he has for a number of years now. Like Mike has gotten a chance to talk to Dan Quinn because they have a ton of Cowboys games. And so I think Mike's perspective will be really valuable there as well. And does look like we have our guy on the phone. And with that, it is our pleasure to welcome in not only the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, but the host of NBC's coverage of the Olympics and the Kentucky Derby, which is this weekend on NBC. It is Mike Tirico. Mike, Craig here. So good to talk to you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Craig. Don't scare me like that. It's next weekend.
It's next weekend. Oh, my God.
Don't scare you. Well, I said, oh, my God, for a second, too, when you said that. Like, wait a minute. I'm not ready yet.
Okay, next weekend.
Next weekend, draft this weekend, but all is good. It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, Mike, nothing exists for me beyond Thursday. You know how it is this time of year. I don't know anything that's happening in my entire life past Thursday. I think I have a flight home from Detroit on Friday. I think. Thursday, draft, first round.
Are you coming? You're coming here?
Oh, yeah. We'll be there on Thursday. So are you going to be there in Detroit? It's not too far for you. So nice home game for you?
It's a little bit. It's only like 45 minutes away from me. I actually I've done some work with the Detroit Sports Commission, which is the group. Many cities have them that you try to acquire the rights to host events like this, and I sit on one of their boards. So that's kind of my civic give back to my community.
Love that.
And we were in the conversations 7 years ago about getting the draft to Detroit. So to see the setup downtown is pretty cool. I think you'll have a nice scene. It looks okay for Thursday. So we're really looking forward to having not just the league, but the millions of people watch on TV to look at downtown Detroit, which it actually has had a couple of good runs in the spotlight here in 24. We had two primetime playoff games from here with the Lions this year, and then the NCAA Midwest Regional with Purdue coming through. So been a good sports start to the year here in Detroit.
No doubt. And I've heard from like NFL type people that kind of the internal word in the NFL is Detroit's trying to do what Nashville did a couple years ago. Nashville is the draft that's been held up as like, oh, that was the one. That's the city that did it best. They were so welcoming. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of people attended. The scenes were incredible. Right. So can you, because there definitely are Commanders fans considering where they're picking. We're having you here on the show as a football expert and as, obviously we'll talk a little bit about the Olympics and the Kentucky Derby that you're hosting, but also as the host of the draft, Mike. You're now officially the host of the draft. Congratulations. What do we expect in Detroit, and what have you guys been working on up there?
Yeah, I think people will find a city that is one of the great stories of a turnaround. You're talking about the Commanders getting this thing turned around in the right direction, and it was a long time and a lot of self-inflicted wounds. There's a parallel with the city of Detroit. This go back for probably before many of the listeners were born, before I lived here. This is one of the thriving cities of America. The auto industry, obviously, their boom. And then the city went through a bunch of stuff, from race riots to crime to all that stuff, and then corruption and bankruptcy really put this city in a bad spot about 15 years ago. Good leadership, businesses coming downtown. Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, really is the key driver in getting business to come back downtown. And now you're going to find a downtown that's thriving, good restaurants, good bars. I mean, a bunch of places, if you are a Commanders fan and coming here, that you will enjoy. And it's Midwest hospitality. I grew up in the Northeast. I've called the Midwest home for 25 years, love both. But there's a warmth and a hospitality to the folks here. And I think everyone's going to find it when if they are coming out. And it's an easy trip. It's a direct flight or a drive for a bunch of people in the league. That's one of the reasons it's here. I don't think Detroit or any other city can pull off Nashville. I think Nashville's a one-of-a-kind place, and they've got a little bit of a setup that just works perfectly. But knowing what they have in store and looking at the stage build-out, it's a pretty cool scene. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait to get there. Again, every pick of the NFL draft right here on the Team 980. I'll be there Thursday with the show, and it's going to be a good time. So, Mike, the kind of two football paths I wanted to go down with you are the Dan Quinn path and the JJ McCarthy path. Let's start off with Quinn. You've called so many of his games over the years. I'm sure, God, you're back when you were at ESPN Monday Night Football. You probably would have talked to him, whether it's in Seattle. I don't think you were still with ESPN when he was in Atlanta as the head coach, but certainly since you've taken over as the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, you'll tend to have the Cowboys a lot. So you've had production meetings and such with Dan. So when you think of like a Dan Quinn football player and how that might translate to this crop of quarterbacks, how do you think that those two pieces connect?
Yeah, I did have games with Dan in Atlanta and Seattle, and obviously Dallas. I've spent a lot of time around Dan and got a chance to visit with Dan and his wife just briefly at the NFL annual meeting this past month in Florida. I'm a huge, huge Dan Quinn fan. I'm very happy for the league because, you know how you're watching the NBA and having the Knicks in the playoffs just adds to the juice a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Having the Commanders be good adds to the NFL, in my opinion. And I think it's going to get him there, and Adam Peters. I like this combination. Let's start with Adam for a second. Just have the background in the Patriots' great era early on in his career, and then San Francisco over the last several years with John Lynch. I think he's seen different ways to find success. So I love him in the front office. Dan gets stuff done. Dan Quinn connects with players in a different way than a lot of people. You'll hear a lot about the brotherhood and all that. It's all real. It's all legit. It's what Dan does. It's how he does it. And I'm excited for this entire organization that Dan is going to be the guy to kind of do this rebuild. I think Ron Rivera saved a lot of uglier things that could have happened on the football field. The team on the field wasn't terrible. Ron did a good job with very limited things to make it better. I think Dan's going to be a perfect fit there in Washington.
And then how that translates to, this quarterback class, you've got, I think all the reports that I've heard are that, like, May's a great guy. Daniels, like, the work ethic has become legendary down at LSU. Obviously, JJ is just a supremely gifted young man. Yeah. It seems like all of them fit in various ways, which is why I have such a hard time, trying to tell fans, like, here's who I think it's going to be. I can make an argument for any of them. Do you have any kind of lean in just your relationship with Dan over the years and what you know about Adam and Cliff Kingsbury? Like, throw him in the mix. Do you have any lean on where you would predict just based off those tea leaves? Or if you have any information, Mike, please, go by all means, spill away.
So I think I worked, 14 or 15 drafts at ESPN. I think I enjoy the draft more than ever right now because I don't have to get involved with the lying game. Everybody lies to everybody. Everybody holds their secret. Everybody's sure something's going to happen. It's really fun because people come up to say, "Hey, what do you think Team X is going to do at 9?" Like, I have no earthly idea. And it's actually fun to watch the draft going that way. Okay, I know what they kind of need. I know what their fits are. To your question, though, when I looked at college football this year and looked at those quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels stuck out for me with what he was able to do. And I'll give you the background because most of the people who are chatting say, looks like Daniels from Washington. Here's what I can give you on Jaden. he played for Brian Kelly. I had the chance to be around Brian for almost 6 seasons in the Notre Dame games. Brian Kelly is hard on quarterbacks in a really good way. He has a way to raise them quicker. And I think that was the case with Jaden. And his skill set, his athletic ability, his ability to become the quarterback, lead, do all those things, that happened as he went from September all the way through the end of last season. So knowing that this guy played for Brian Kelly, I'd have a really good feeling that he's going to be able to perform to the pressure of the NFL and the system and in DC and all of that. I have a good feeling in watching Jaden and talking to Brian a couple of times via text during the year of how they thought of him down there. And I think it's kind of the way you'd think about a guy you'd want to be a franchise quarterback.
No doubt. Mike Tirico, play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. That's such a good point with Kelly and quarterbacks, because it's something that I think a lot of us have brought up about McCarthy. And I'm going to, just for the audience, I'm clarifying. I'm going to ask Mike about McCarthy because I wanted to ask Mike about McCarthy, not because I'm trying to push JJ McCarthy to the Commanders, even though I like him a lot. Mike, it's been 3 months, 4 months of this. The fan base is ready. We're all ready for Thursday. But when we talk about that coach-quarterback connection, like one of the big lines on McCarthy is, well, hey, if he can play for Harbaugh, then he can play for anybody in the NFL, because we obviously know that Jim is now back in the league. But being there in Ann Arbor, getting to know JJ, calling games, and kind of watching him grow over these last couple of years, how good do you think JJ McCarthy as an NFL quarterback can be?
Yeah, no doubt. JJ's a winner. You look at his record all the way through. He's won football games, won championships, led teams. You go back to the TCU game that they lost. That was a type of game Michigan had not played. We had to go up and down the field and score, and their defense couldn't stop anybody. And that's a year plus ago, right? He was terrific. He kept them score for score in that game, which kind of shows you the dig deep he has. That's a guy who can dig deep and raise his level. I would say you didn't see from J.J. McCarthy what you see from other quarterbacks in the NFL. What do I mean by that? Or in college football. Michigan ran the ball a lot. Almost to the point where it had more of a pro offense feel than a collegiate offense feel. So the comp for McCarthy might be easier for the scouts and the coaches who do those things. They haven't seen McCarthy have to carry a team on his back. Daniels did because the LSU defense was so poor last year. May did because North Carolina's defense was poor. Williams did because, you got it, USC's defense was poor. So those guys up there at the top, they had to carry teams a lot. Michigan's defense was really, really good. Their whole team was really, really good. But I think if you watch J.J. McCarthy, if you're an NFL guy, you've got a sense of how he operates. Intangibles, yes. Winner, yes. Got to meet him a few times. We had their first game last year on Peacock. Got a chance to meet with him, watch him practice, watch him at practice. I check all the boxes there. When you look at him next to Jaden Daniels, does he make a super athletic, great play that Daniels makes? Sometimes he can. I think you saw it more from Daniels than you saw it on a regular basis. So probably why the consensus of evaluations have Daniels ahead of McCarthy. If you told me that we had to get a quarterback out of this draft, we're going to invest in J.J. McCarthy, I'd feel okay about it. Now, would I feel better as you came down to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Yeah, I would. I don't know if I'd feel great about it if it was 1 or 2 compared to Williams and Daniels, but I'd feel really good about a guy who I think can be my quarterback as I let him grow into the position for a while.
Last draft-related question for you. There's so many other Michigan guys in this draft. Two that I think are really interesting for Washington purposes are Mike Sanders, still the corner, and Junior Colson, the linebacker, second and probably third or fourth round, respectively. Any real file on either of those guys that you can remember? Because I think that game was week 1 that you called for them, because it was early in the highlight tape. As I was watching McCarthy, I was like, oh, that's Mike's on this game. So anything you remember specifically from those two guys as you prepare for that one?
So 3 years ago, I guess it is now, I was on a show in Cleveland, and I told those guys, Jeremiah Olusu-Koromoa, who I had seen at Notre Dame, I think he's guaranteed to be a really good NFL player. Not know that there was a medical issue, a little bit. Took him. He's been pretty good with the Browns.
Yeah.
Say that his background, that I don't get that feeling on guys very often, unless I've seen them play, to talk to them, watch them. He's still one of those guys. Never gets Mikey. That's what everybody called him all year. The sense that he's going to be a starting nickel for the year. He intelligent, and that for the ball is that football term that gets abused. The ball usually happens when guys have great football intelligence, study the game, athleticism to get them where they need to be at those moments. Every time I watch Michigan play, he's right around the ball. I think that guy can be a really good NFL player. Peter Colson, yes, I'm right there with you. I just have a feeling that Tamerson is going to come in right away and be a good fit. I also think Blake Corum is going to be back who can last in the league for years. Running backs are valued, obviously, as we know, but Tim might get a guy who can be one of your two backs in a rotation for the upcoming season.
Mike Tirico is with us. Coming up in 2 weeks, Mike, the 150th Kentucky Derby on NBC. 2:30 is the coverage. And, of course, this summer he'll host primetime coverage of the Paris Olympics on NBC and Peacock. And, Mike, I will actually be in Paris as well. My wife and I are going as fans. So who knows if I run into you on the streets of Paris somewhere. What's been your favorite part of preparing for these Olympic Games? I know you spend so much time doing it around the football, around things like the Derby that you now are hosting every year, but the Olympics are such a unique beast to prepare for. What's been your favorite part about preparing for Paris this summer?
Olympics are 2.5 weeks every 2 years, the winter and the summer games. The other half weeks of the years, those 2 years, something Olympic going on. It always feels like there's a feature or a meeting or a world championship somewhere that you need to watch, or an opportunity to be around some of the athletes. So it's a constant paper, if you will, of a professional life. And I've come to love it, the job now, the last 6 years, 7 years to be. This Olympics has a chance to be really cool. I was just in Paris a week to do some stuff because we're 100 days out. Now it's 5 days, I guess it is. Chance to do some visiting of the venues, get around the city, see what it's going to be like. I think it's going to be a great Olympics. The last 3 have been in Asia, Korea, Japan, and China. The last 2, COVID, limited to no fans. So, the energy of the Olympics has been muted. This is all about passion, energy, beauty, and I think we're going to have good setting. Here's the one thing I think is really cool, one of the many. They're going to use some of the iconic spots in Paris games. For example, beach volleyball could be in a temporary stadium on trucked-in sand, the Eiffel Tower. A chance to watch them as they're putting up the stadium is about 2/3 done right now. It's going to look so dang cool. Matches with the Eiffel Tower behind you and beach volleyball going on, it's going to be a treat. They've got that in different spots around the country. So I think it's going to be a great Olympic Games, and we are certainly excited. The good news for the viewers, it's going to be live. So even though there's a 6-hour time difference, the final is run at 3:30 DC time, live on NBC4. We're going to have live coverage of all those events, and then in prime time, special treatment as we broadcast the big events of the day with some behind-the-scenes stuff around it, so you get to see more of the stuff we can't show you when we're live for everything.
Oh, that's really cool. And I love what Paris is doing, as you mentioned, using the city. For instance, hey, let's have the marathon course. Start in Paris, run to Versailles, come back. Where else can you do that? Nowhere. Only in Paris. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Of course, the 150th Kentucky Derby is up first for Mike. That is Saturday, May 4th at 2:30 on NBC. Of course, the NFL Draft in Mike's home city of Detroit, or relative home city of Detroit, this Thursday. Mike, appreciate your perspective and time as always, sir. Hopefully I'll run into you, whether it's in Detroit or Paris, a sentence I've never said before, but hopefully I'll see you somewhere around.
then it would be Detroit. Detroit was, the grid was modeled after Paris. There's always a connection. And safe travels here, and the folks who are coming here, we hope you have a good time. The city is ready to roll out the red carpet for everyone, and I think you'll have a good time. So safe travels and enjoy the draft.
All right, thanks, Mike. That is Mike Tirico with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back here on the Team 980, we can react to some of what Mike had to say. And also, Ant, technically, it is a Tuesday, and that means it's a Vibe Check Tuesday. And it is our final Vibe Check Tuesday before said NFL draft in Detroit.
Yes, sir.
So at 301-230-0980, very simply, how are you feeling? How are you feeling heading in to Thursday? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling worried? Are you feeling like the Commanders need to take insert quarterback here or insert tackle here or something else? I don't know. That's why we do it. You give us the vibes. I give you the phone number. You call in. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Vibe Check Tuesday. Next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Thanks again to Mike Tirico, play-by-play voice of NBC Sunday Night Football, and of course, host of their Olympic coverage this summer and the 150th Kentucky Derby on NBC. That's coming up Saturday, 2:30 p.m. next Saturday, May 4th. 2:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, Anthony, it's time for a Vibe Check Tuesday. The phone number is 301-230-0980, and we are leaving this far more open-ended than usual, especially in the offseason. In the offseason, we've been very pointed with our questions, but this is the end. We have gotten to the draft. It is Thursday. We are very, very close to being here, to actually knowing who they're going to take at number 2. So I am actually just saying, as long as it's relatively Commanders adjacent, anything you want on the NFL draft. It can be first round adjacent. It can be later rounds. It can be questions about prospects. I don't know all of them, but I know a lot of them at this point. Be anything you want. 301-230-0980. Let us dive in. 301-230-0980. We start off with Ross in Tampa. Ross, listening on the free Odyssey app or watching on YouTube, first of all?
I'm on the Odyssey app, man. I'm
Love it.
working right now, so I had to pull over to take this call. So thank you for taking my call. I appreciate
you got it. Well, we couldn't have you standing on the side of the road forever, obviously. All right, well, let's keep it moving then so you can get back to work. But what you got for us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a mail carrier, so I got all the time in the world. So over the month, I was like, okay, we're going to end up getting Drake May because that was the consensus all last year, I'm way too top early draft. And I'm like, okay, fine. I like Drake May. I did my homework. I like what I see. I don't know why. I guess he's this year's Will Levis for some reason. I don't understand. And then the emergence of Jaden Daniels, obviously. And then you have McCarthy. McCarthy's the winner, but when I listen to Kevin and other people, they compare him to Brock Purdy and who's the other, Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And like Kevin said, I don't want to pick him in the second overall pick, but I always look at it this way too. Back in 2017, nobody had Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the league coming out in that class. It was Trubisky, then Watson. Maybe Adam Peters and his crew are getting ahead of it, and they think McCarthy has the most long-term success. So they picked McCarthy. I'm not going to be one of these fans that are going to be outraged about it. Like I told Anthony, if they picked my man out of Tulane with the first pick, I'm just like, okay, they know what they're doing. But I would also like to say this. A lot of Eagles fans give me a hard – because I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan. And they love to give me a hard time because they're picking up all of our players. I think Washington needs to open their eyes and realize the winner for their building down there in Athens. And if they could trade back into the late first round and get Amarius Mims, I promise they won't regret it. I followed that kid since he was a junior in high school.
Yep.
He has all the upside. And had he not have gotten injured, he'd have been way ahead of Joel and Tashanu. But, hey, man, I'm going to do my best to call a little bit more often. I appreciate you guys for taking the call, man. Y'all be easy.
All right, thanks so much, Ross. Back to the mail route you go. It's funny, Ross, Aunt Ross said, I got all the time in the world. And I'm like, do the people who are waiting on their packages and stuff, do they think you got all the time in the world, Ross? Just giving Ross a hard time. It's a great call. I do think the Mims thing is interesting. And actually, this morning, we did our final Take Command mock draft. And spoiler alert, we wound up trading into the first round for Amarius Mims. He was available at 23. We got ahead of Dallas at 24. And we took Amarius Mims. I think Logan's really high on him. I mean, look, I don't pretend to have it. I can take a look at the scouting reports and tell you what they say. I've done a good job of collecting the information and collecting multiple opinions. I don't waste my time watching O-line play because I don't know what I'm looking at. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and pretend that I do. Here's what I know about Amarius Mims. The really smart people like him a lot. And Mims is a guy who Dane Brugler had just a bar about where he goes, he is not he's not raw, he's inexperienced. In other words, he plays at a very high level. He just hasn't played a lot. As opposed to a guy like Tyler Guyton, who is also a freakish athlete and doesn't have a lot of game experience, but that experience and lack thereof shows up on tape. My only real concern with Amarius Mims is he has been hurt. Dude stays hurt. He's only played in 8 games, started 7, and at the combine in the middle of putting on an all-everything athletic performance, he pulled his hamstring running the 40. So if this dude just is going to stay hurt, he doesn't help me, and he's just a potential guy, and that potential gets you fired. If he can be on the field, I feel pretty good that Amarius Mims is going to be a top half, if not top 10, if not top 5 tackle in the NFL. He's that good. So that is the Amarius Mims story. As for the quarterback side of it, it is funny to me that all of the wind is blowing towards Daniels. Not because I don't think it's right. There's just so much of it. Actually, Ann, do we have the Daniel Jeremiah clip? Did we pull that?
No, but I can get it real quick for you.
Okay. It's all right. I can summarize it. Let's have it just in case, but I'll summarize for now. Basically, Jeremiah was like, he's been on Drake May for a while. A lot of the scouting types seems to be the ones on May, a lot of coaches, former players. Those are the guys that are on Daniels. And he's just like, look, not that I don't get it. Like, he likes Jaden Daniels too, but he's like, eventually I got to take my personal opinion out of it. And even though I have Daniels behind May, I got to just be like, everyone I talk to thinks it's Daniels. And yet, I don't think that anybody actually knows. Like, I just don't know where this could be coming from. Because Adam Peters doesn't talk. Adam Peters does not give anybody anything. And so how do all of these people know what Washington's going to do when Josh Harris doesn't talk? Dan Quinn, I don't even know if Dan Quinn knows. Like, I'm sure he does. But, like, if you told me there were 4 people that knew the pick, and that it was Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, Lance Newmark, the assistant GM, and Josh Harris, I'd believe you. Maybe Cliff. Maybe. But I truly think that it's that tight of a circle. That's how they've operated. It's how Adam has operated in the past in San Francisco. So, with that said, if they go McCarthy, I do think it's in part we're taking the Brock Purdy bet, and we know that we shouldn't have taken him last in that draft. We should have taken him way higher. Not that we should have taken him, second, but he is potentially has all of those things that the Cousins and the Purdys and the guys that have won a bunch of games, and in Purdy's case now played in a Super Bowl, have. The quick processing, the quick release. Like, he's got a lot of that stuff, and he's a better athlete, and he makes more plays, and he's got a better track record of some of the college resume than a guy like Cousins or Purdy had at Michigan State and Iowa State. So, he's a deluxe version of that. And I would want that. I would take that at the number 2 pick. Other people disagree because you want to take the swing at like Mahomes, and I also understand that logic as well. Let's go to Paul in D.C. Paul, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I always like listening to you all. I just got, I listened to the sports, the so-called experts nationally, and then I listened to our local, and then I'm just trying to figure out one thing. I've been a football fan for over 61 years. Been a Redskin fan that whole entire time. I don't have Alzheimer's. I know how to think well. I see the game well, and those kind of things like that. But the problem that I have is that I keep hearing this upside, and I keep hearing the upside as it relates to McCartney and as it relates to May. So what are we really saying here? That Daniels doesn't have an upside? That he won't be, that he doesn't have a chance to do some of the things that we're talking about that May can do and McCartney can do?
Yeah. No, I mean, Paul, somewhere in here there's a really funny joke about, well, you've been a Washington fan for 61 years, so I'm not surprised you can't see what good quarterback play is like. It's just unfortunately been the reality. But that's
because the whole time we've had maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, right. It's been a while. You just forgot. No, there's a joke somewhere in there, but we don't need to go down that path. No, I would say it's not that I don't think May and McCarthy have upside. I think you raise a great point. And I was probably, if I'm being honest, guilty of this earlier in the process before I kind of really understood not necessarily what Jaden had put on tape, but who he was as a guy and how the tape got to where it was. I think you are 100% correct to point out that Jaden Daniels also has upside. That because I think the difference is because Jaden is older. He's 23, where JJ and Drake are the two youngest quarterbacks in this class at 21 apiece. JJ doesn't even turn 22 until after next season. I
want to say this before we lose each other, because I know you're going to go to another caller, and this is where I really truly stand. Because like I said, I've been a fan for over 60-something years.
Yeah.
If McCartney is my quarterback, that's my quarterback. If May is my quarterback, that's my quarterback. If Daniels is, that's it. I have my preferences. We all do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But the bottom line, I want that second pick to be a good one. And between them three guys, I can't see us really doing wrong with taking one of them three.
I agree with you, Paul. Appreciate the call. Call anytime. Thank you. And I'll continue to answer your question here as we let you go. But, I think because Jaden is more polished now, people talk less about his upside. People are like, oh, he's already good. And they ignore the fact that just because he's already good and he had the season that he had and won the Heisman, that he can still get better. Like, his work ethic and the propensity he has shown to improve is off the charts from 22 to 23. And it came from him making a change in how he approached the game and using a tool in virtual reality to ultimately achieve the thing that he wanted to be. And so I think that's a great point that I totally undersold that, I think, as well, is how good Jaden could become. Obviously, I think people tend to then say, all right, he's already good right now. And we almost take that for granted, and they point out the downsides of, okay, well, there are some questions about the complexity of the offense. There are some questions about the frame and the weight. And so we tend to do that because we just say, hey, we are taking for granted how good he is. And instead of, one, emphasizing how good he is, and two, saying, he's this good and he could improve on some of these other things, including adding weight and showing a propensity to get better reading defenses as the demand on him grows, because he didn't need, there was no higher demand on him at LSU. He did have great receivers. He did have an offense that made things easy for him. He did face simple defenses because he had such a running threat that teams had to limit the coverages that they face. But that doesn't mean if teams stop doing that stuff in the NFL that he's incapable of doing it. There are historical trends that are concerning, and to not point that out, I think would be not doing my job. But I would bet on him. I would bet on him to be the exception because of who he is as a person and for what his work ethic has shown to be, and because, as Tirico talked about earlier, he played under a coach in Brian Kelly that's pretty damn demanding of his quarterbacks. And I think all of that stuff leads to a pretty good place for Jaden Daniels as a prospect. And just because maybe the gap between what they could be and what they are is bigger for McCarthy and especially for May doesn't mean that where he can get, how high is the ceiling? Not what floor are they currently on. I do think that is something that's probably undersold about Jaden Daniels. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, more of your calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday, 301-230-0980 on the Hoffman Show. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday on the Hoffman Show, 301-230-0980. We typically do an hour of calls on Tuesday, and if y'all keep calling, I'm still down to do that. We just started a little bit later because Mike Tirico joined us off the top today. So we got some calls, but we also have some open lines, which means you can hit us up at 301-230-0980. Coming up later in the show, you'll hear Charles Davis on the safety and linebacker classes. We haven't spent a lot of time on those positions, but they're really actually critically important for the Commanders in later rounds, and maybe for some reasons you did not totally expect, a.k.a. it's time for the special teams portion of the draft. Why that could play a much larger factor this year than in previous drafts. We will get to that coming up in the next hour of the show, but your calls first, 301-230-0980. Let's keep it rolling on this Vibe Check Tuesday with Mike in Connecticut. Mike, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Greg, great to talk to you, man. 1982, I met my wife on a blind date. She was a huge Redskin fan, so of course, to endear myself, I jumped right on that bandwagon and got 10 years of Joe Gibbs.
That was good timing
spoiled.
at the time. It hasn't necessarily worked out for you as great lately, but you know, hey, 1982?
Greg,
that's 40 plus years.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. But now talk to my 35-year-old son, and he'll say to me, "Why did you get me into these Redskins? We could have been Patriot fans. We win every other year." But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, well, hey, they're 2 and 3 in the draft this year.
forward.
We ended in the same place, just slightly different
There
paths to
you
get
go.
there. Anyway, as for said draft, you have a thing.
So my vibe today, I'm a longtime golfer, and I feel like we're entering the paralysis by overanalysis zone. My wife and I drive in every day. We listen to Galdi in the morning. We listen to Kevin during the day on the podcast. JP, I catch you at 4 o'clock when I pick her up. I'm at the point now where whoever we take, he's my quarterback. I'm going to support him. But I have to be honest. I started looking at some game film, and that Daniels scares the hell out of me. Some of the hits he took, I get PTSD. RG3, you know, it's a tough looking body type for entering the NFL, and we see what happened to our man RG too. So
yeah, no,
that's where my vibe is at.
Yeah, no, Mike, it is the biggest red flag, obvious concern with Jaden Daniels. Here's what I would tell you, and appreciate your call, and appreciate you listening every single day. What I would say about Daniels is, outside of body type, he and Robert are completely different players. Completely different. Robert had a stronger arm in terms of velocity, but did not read the field as well. Jaden is a better passer. His footwork is cleaner. He's more consistent, sees the field well. He's got quicker and better eyes. He throws with more touch. He can layer throws better. I know there are some guys that I respect who think that Daniels is not like, that's an area where he can continue to grow, is layering throws. But ultimately, like when we talk about comparison to Robert was a fastball pitcher. And then he was a home run hitter as a runner. It was straight line speed, not a ton of escape, not a ton of like shift, not a ton of shake. He was a sprinter. And Robert, again, damn near world-class sprinter. Really was a world-class sprinter. Like damn near qualified for the Olympics as a hurdler. He was that fast. Jaden is not that fast, but you don't have to be that fast to play in the NFL and run away from guys in the NFL. He's fast enough to do that. So I think that the body type and durability stuff becomes really interesting and becomes really problematic if he continues to take hits like he's in a Looney Tunes cartoon. Because there are about 7 or 8 of them that you're just like, oh man, you cannot do that in the league. There's also other times where he does get out of bounds and he does slide. And like there is some of that on tape too. But when he gets lit up like a firework and looks to explode, you get a little squeamish if you're scouting him. I understand why people have that. I am less concerned about that with him than I would have been with Robert. And Robert also had an injury history. Jaden Daniels, thankfully, does not. Let's go to Corey next. Corey, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, I appreciate you taking my call. I thought it was pretty interesting to hear that this is called the Hoffman Show. That's my last name.
Well, it's also
I'm not
mine.
sure if
In
we're
all due
related
respect,
or not.
Corey, that's why it's called the Hoffman Show. It is something we've been doing for almost 2 years now. But I appreciate you joining. Apparently, you're very welcome here because you do have the last name password. Anyway, what you got for us on this Vibe Check Tuesday?
So I was, I've been listening. I told the other guy I've been listening to the NFL Network on Sirius XM, but I was like, you know what? It's getting close to the draft. I need to be listening to my local stations, and I tuned in and heard this, and I'm very intrigued. I think taking Jaden Daniels at number 2 is perfect. First of all, I really am hesitant on JJ or Drake May just because I didn't see much improvement throughout their college careers, their short college careers for especially Drake. But I also thought of another scenario with the Arizona Cardinals and us having Cliff now as our offensive coordinator, the option of trading back and doing a trade for Kyler Murray and taking up additional picks, taking their 4th pick and drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so I have 2 thoughts that shut that down pretty quickly. One, why would Arizona say yes to that? What do they do? I guess your argument is they would go reset their quarterback timeline. They would get Jaden or Drake or whoever they like it to. So they would get to be on a rookie quarterback contract timeline.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one part. Yeah, I could see them potentially wanting to do that. Here's the other part of it, though. I don't want to pay Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is expensive. Kyler Murray has not been hurt, and it actually goes back to what we just talked about with Daniels and the concerns that Mike, the last caller, had, which is Kyler has spent a ton of time on the bench, and he is expensive and unreliable, and that is a bad combination. I like Kyler as a player just fine when he's out there, but I can't trust him. And there's also been enough questions, I think, about his leadership and how he approaches things that if you are trying to build a people-first organization in the way that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters are, he's not the right cultural fit either.
Makes sense.
So that would be my take.
And again, I know that I think Jaden Daniels is definitely what I would go with, but I was just thinking more future picks, even going back 2 picks. They're going to have to give up quite a bit. But, yeah, I agree with you on the injuries and stuff like that with the finances.
All right, Corey. Well, thanks for the call. Hopefully we can keep you away from those serious national folks, and we can, now that you found the show, we can keep you around for a while. Hopefully the last name will help. Appreciate the call. So we got a couple more calls. We got a couple more open lines. I said we roll this into the next hour. Vibe Check Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour. Yeah, we're doing it. It's draft week. Screw it. We're talking to you. 301-230-0980. More of your calls next. Never again will I threaten people with a good time. Good gracious. We had a bunch of calls lined up. And then about 30 seconds before, we were going to go to all of you on the phones, 301-230-0980, to continue Vibe Check Tuesday here into the 5 o'clock hour on a Tuesday, because our initial Vibe Check Tuesday got delayed by the fact that Mike Tirico gave us a call, which was great, at 4 o'clock. Everybody hung up. What had happened?
I don't know. They were there. They were there. We had a couple of guys.
I was really excited because one of them said hypothetical.
Yep.
Do you know what the hypothetical was? Did he tell you?
The hypothetical.
Think about it for a second. So if you want to call in, all of our phone lines are open. I would like to keep taking calls. 301-230-0980. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. So I want to know how you're feeling going into the NFL draft on Thursday. Every single pick for the Commanders of the 2024 NFL draft is live here on the Team 980. Relevant factoid. You can listen Thursday night to our coverage, which will be led by Grant and Danny, simulcast on 106.7 The Fan. Friday and Saturday exclusively here on the Team 980. Kevin Sheehan on Friday, and then Linnell's got you late night, and then Denton's there on Saturday. So we're your home for draft coverage. We had said someone who shares my last name, not a plant, not a cousin. I don't know who that person was, but Corey called us. He's Corey Hoffman, apparently. He just found the show. Brand new. We've been doing this for 2 years. People still finding it. So if you're new, things you should know. We do Vibe Check Tuesday, where we take your calls on Tuesdays. Typically, it goes from 4 to 5. But today, they're going 4:30 to 5:30 if people call. If not, then we'll pivot. Audible. Omaha! But also, every single pick of the draft is here on the Team 980. So if you were planning on listening to like national radio, why would you do that? You can get Commanders coverage right here. You can listen to us, of course, on the free Odyssey app. You can listen to us on 980 AM. You can listen to us on 106.7 HD2 if you have a fancy HD radio, which most cars actually do these days. And you can stream us live on YouTube for this show at the Team 980. Those are all the things that people need to know. And now that I've told everybody this, we have multiple people calling in on the phones. So Anthony, and if you're watching on YouTube, you saw this because you see the phone lines going. Although Anthony's had to hang up on multiple people already, which is not ideal. Let's see if we can get someone who is actually worth putting through the phone. This is why we have a call screener. Anthony does a tremendous job. I'm just sitting here vamping, which is apparently going great because multiple people have already called in. Okay, successful vamp. We'll get to Charles Davis and his thoughts on the safety and linebacker class later in the show. I'm pumped for that too, but I want to talk to you guys. Let's go. Our second caller of Vibe Check Tuesday in Connecticut. Let's go to Ryan. Ryan, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Love it.
Just wanted to say, after all this going back and forth between the different quarterbacks, I do have to just take a moment to just feel thankful that we are in the number 2 spot. I mean, after all the back and forth, we obviously know Caleb's going number 1, but we could be in number 3. We could be a little bit lower down, just getting somebody else's scraps. And, thankfully we're just going to take our guy, whoever that may be.
Yeah, no, Ryan, I think that's a great point because obviously it looked like late in the season, they'll wind up 5, 4, somewhere in there. Then they wind up at 2. But I think the other thing that's underrated about where they are right now is that they didn't have to trade to get here. Number 2 picks for quarterbacks have felt like it's cursed, from Zach Wilson and it was just a miss on the evaluation, but guys like Carson Wentz, right? Wentz, who actually performed well early on in Philadelphia, but part of the reason you can't sustain it outside of Carson's injuries and then whatever followed with him mentally, where he just never seemed quite right after, is you couldn't surround him with the right pieces because you traded a bunch of stuff to get him. And a lot of the number 2 picks that have failed have been that way. I mean, Robert, obviously, these quarterbacks also have, and how they were treated by their teams, that specific relationship in a vacuum has something to do with it. But part of the way you're able to build a winning team, and part of the reason you're able to do that is to develop a quarterback with pieces around and to not put too much on him, which will help him actually be successful, is by surrounding him with other young, talented players. If you want to build through the draft, you actually have to have draft capital. And it's why, by the way, San Francisco somehow, even though they traded up and failed on Trey Lance, is they did so well in other parts of other drafts that they somehow made up for it. And Washington doesn't even have to make up for it. Let's say they hit on 5 of the 6 picks, but number 2 they miss on, they'll still be good in a couple of years. Really. Because you can build around a subpar quarterback in the way that San Francisco looked like they were. Now, it turns out Purdy's actually pretty good. But they allowed him to go from like they were carrying him to he can carry them a little bit. The incubation. We use that term a lot with Sam Howell during the season and their failure to do that. That is the kind of thing that excites me about where the Commanders are. Let's go to who's been on hold the longest. Let's go to Dan in Fort Washington. Dan, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, how's it going, man?
Good, Dan. What's your vibe on this Vibe Check Tuesday just before the draft?
Yeah, so I'm good. I'm good with the second round pick. I know, for sure, Jaden Daniels will be a good fit for us. I have my concerns with the offensive line. I know, to me, the best pickup this year, aside from Bobby Wagner, is Tyler Biadasz from the center from Dallas.
Yep.
I think he's going to be a great, anchor, for years to come. Hopefully he'll be healthy and, he doesn't want to, he's the type of player that you want to get to the trenches, wants to get the dirty work done. And, I'm very pleased with the development of Sam Cosmi. But other than that, left tackle, aside from our quarterback, search for over 20 plus years, left tackle, aside from Trent Williams, foolishly being traded by our previous management, that has been a gleaming hole, for the past, X amount of years. So I'm hoping that they do address it. If they can move up, day one, that would be great. But more than likely, they're probably going to make their moves to address the O-line, day 2 or day 3. So I just want to just get your thoughts on that. Because I think O-line is definitely something I, want to have them improve, especially with.
For sure.
I know Sam Howell last year was running for his life last year, and part of that is part of his problem. Part of it too was part of the O-line.
Right.
But I just want to get your thoughts on addressing the O-line.
No, they need to.
Thanks for the show.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Thanks for the call. They absolutely need to address O-line, and they absolutely need to address left tackle, and it's the only thing outside of quarterback that's an absolutely must address in this draft. In that you're really not ready to play tomorrow, right? Now, do they have other needs? Yeah, that's not me saying they don't need to get an edge, a corner, a receiver. They need to add depth at those positions. And if they can add a high-level player at those positions, especially one immediately, great. Chances are it's someone who maybe develops in the next couple of years at some of those other spots. But offensive line, you don't want to enter 2024 as with Cornelius Lucas being your plan for 17 games. If Cornelius Lucas is your starting left tackle for 6 games while a young guy develops, that's fine. I'm good with that. And there's a couple of candidates that I think will, 2 to 3 of which you might have to trade up for. And I think it's worth talking about the levels here. So level 1 is, I would say, the Olu-Fashanu, Amarius Mims category. You're going to have to give up not 36 and 40. To be clear, I would not give up 36 and 40 for either of those guys. That is too risky. It's too rich. Every piece of data, every study, everything says that's a bad idea. Take multiple players, take multiple swings. You are better from an odds standpoint hitting than trying to put all your eggs in one basket. But if you tell me I can give up 36 and 78 or 36 or 40 and 100 to get back into the 20s, now I'm talking. And if Fashanu or Mims falls there, I'm willing to do that. The next bucket is Tyler Guyton and Jordan Morgan. And I'm going to lump Morgan in there. I think Logan might disagree. I'm going to lump, and I'm not necessarily even disagreeing with Logan. I just think his story is really interesting. Guyton is a raw athlete from Oklahoma. He played right tackle mostly, but he hasn't actually played that many games. He's only played like 14 games. And he probably could switch to left tackle based off his athleticism. And unlike some other guys who struggle with that switch, it's not like he's played so much right tackle that he's got all these reps that you kind of have to unwire his brain of how to play on the outside, and it's everything the other way. No, he can just, okay, now I do it the other way. Okay. It's all kind of new to me anyway. And so he's got the athleticism to do that. Morgan's a guy that some people see as a guard, but I think some of that is when you watch his tape, he's maybe a little bit stiffer, a little bit tighter, doesn't have the movement skill necessarily to be outside at tackle. And then you realize that he's 1 year removed from an ACL. And so he has a really athletic background. He tested really well. And in year 2 removed from that ACL, I wonder if he's got it to play outside. The next group is the guys that you wait for 36 for. And I would probably just, I don't know. I'm kind of okay with any of these options. At 36 and 40, you're looking at Kingsley Suamataia, who might go a little bit earlier. He might actually belong in that earlier group. And we've talked about him before. There's some stuff specific to him that I've got concerns about, but that could easily be overcome. This is kind of one of those, the interview process is really important kind of things. Suamataia, Patrick Paul from Houston, Chris Paul's brother. And the other really interesting one that's much more of a could play right now, but has a lower ceiling, doesn't have quite the athleticism and some of the measurables that you want. If you want to take a big swing there, would be Roger Rosengarten out of University of Washington. So those are the guys to watch. Kieran Amadiji out of Yale is another guy, but he's probably a little bit later. Like if you get into that 67 range, maybe that's what you're looking at. But those are kind of the main guys. I feel like I'm missing someone, but that's kind of the lay of the land at tackle. And I think they could approach it any of those ways, depending on how the draft goes. Obviously, the longer you wait, the less you have to give up, but the more risk you have of someone else jumping you or of teams like Dallas and Green Bay at 24 and 25 taking one of the guys you want. So 23 is a spot. We don't know who's going to be picking at 23. Right now it's the Vikings, but we presume they're going to try to trade up. So it could be a double trade back situation for whoever winds up with the 23rd pick. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Definitely have some great calls lined up. We're going to get through more of these next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We are always live on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, and of course, the Team 980 on your radio, the home for every pick for the Commanders during the 2024 NFL Draft. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we're taking your calls at 301-230-0980. And let's pick up where we left off, talking about the offensive line with Russell in Ashburn. Russell, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Greg, how's it going?
Going well, Russell. Thanks for calling in.
You actually answered part of my question with the previous caller, but I'll tack on to that.
Okay.
You know, we've been so impressed with what Adam Peters has done in terms of short-term roster building, plugging holes, you know, places of need, etc., on short-term one-year contracts. So he has starters that are available to go while building long-term through the draft. That makes a lot of sense. The only position that they haven't addressed is left tackle, because if you're not looking at Cornelius Lucas, then you don't really have a left tackle as a starter on the roster, which I'm a little confused about, because if you're only planning to address that through the draft and you miss out on not having a day one starter ready to go, then that's actually a risk in terms of having a rookie quarterback who doesn't have the protection he needs for his growth. So if you are not able to move into the first round, back into the first round, and get Mims or Fashanu in the middle of the first round, and you're basically left with no other options but with drafting someone like Guyton or Patrick Paul or Jordan Morgan, and they're not ready to go immediately day one, then isn't that a little bit of a risk with a young quarterback?
Yeah, Russell, I mean, it absolutely is. And I would say two things, though, to maybe ease your and everyone else's nerves on that, and appreciate the call. It's a really good one, because this is a point that I think we've made a couple of times throughout the process, but is a good one to bring up now. One, evaluation and coaching and development is all really important, and it's all really subjective, and we sometimes get surprised with who is good and who's not. So they might have someone that they feel really confident about getting in the second round, that they're like, that dude can start right away. And maybe they also, sometimes you veer towards upside. You put Roger Rosengarten out there tomorrow in the NFL, like, he's going to lose some, but he'll be all right. And maybe that's their guy. Maybe they really like him and they look at him as a safe pick. It's not going to be a home run. He's not going to turn into a top 10 tackle in the league, but that dude could start for us and we're going to be okay on a rookie contract. And if we want to attack that position more aggressively in the future and kick him inside to guard, then so be it. So maybe that is kind of the plan, because you can't do everything at once. So that'd be one thing to just kind of keep in mind on like an optimist lens. Two, on the optimist lens, Cornelius Lucas is not unplayable. And I know that because Cornelius Lucas has played pretty well for this team. I also know Cornelius Lucas is not a starting caliber tackle in the NFL because he's hit free agency multiple times. No one seems to want to sign him. He keeps coming back here as a backup. So that's great for Washington. He is probably one of the best. Let's see, if there are 32 teams, 2 tackles per team, he's maybe one of the best 75 tackles in football, right? But you want one of the best 32 at least. You would really have 2 of the best 32. And Wiley's kind of like right on that 32 to 38 line based off PFF's grades the last couple of years at right tackle, which I think is like an irrelevant data point, right? Like you could upgrade on Andrew Wiley as well, obviously. But you're not dead in the water, despite I know there's some snaps last year where he was, but there's other times he plays really well. So that is something to keep in mind as well, that let's say you go Patrick Paul or you go Jordan Morgan or someone that you feel like is not necessarily a day one starter, but doesn't need 4 years to develop, because nobody gets that, but needs 6 weeks, needs a bunch of weeks of practice, needs to watch some games from the sideline. Maybe he even is a rotational player for you for a couple weeks until he takes over the starting job. That is, I think, a feasible outcome. And then the last thing I would say on the tackle is they do have the ammo to move. And that is something that they planned for, right? Starting last year, like give Eugene Shen and whoever else was pushing for the trade for Chase Young and Montez Sweat a lot of credit, right? Josh Harris, or whatever involvement he had in getting people in place to be long-term thinkers in the room, to go like, we need extra capital because we got certain issues that we got to do. We got to solve. And then the last point I would make, truly the last point, is there are some veterans still available, and there will be more available in the fall. There's always surprise cuts. Left tackle is a pretty, not I want to say easy position to learn, but like if you're a vet who gets cut in camp, you can go into another system pretty quickly and go play tackle. And you'll have to learn some of the technique and some of the things that the coaches in this system want. But, hey, don't get our quarterback killed. Okay, cool. I watched Donald Penn do it a bunch of years ago. Dude who had been around the league for a bunch of years. Commanders thought that they would get a deal done with Trent Williams. Trent was like, no, I'm seriously not playing. Like, and also at that point is when he couldn't get his helmet on his head. And like they didn't realize how serious it was or refused to because whatever, we don't need to really relitigate that. But Donald Penn comes in and it's like, okay, the dude's not like, he's not Trent Williams, that's for sure, but he can play. And there's a lot of those kinds of guys that I think could still be potential options. That they didn't sign someone in the first two waves, which I wish they would have, but that is kind of another way to spin it if you want to be optimistic about what they got. Let's go to let's go to Kenny in Charlotte. Kenny's got a good question. Kenny, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Gentlemen, appreciate y'all. How y'all doing?
Good, Kenny. Appreciate you.
All right. So I'm really not too worried about the offensive line with the brain trust that we have intact, simply because that's where they thrive, in my opinion, looking for talent later in the draft. But I want to kind of put you, Craig, and even Ant-Man, if possible, in Adam Peters' shoes.
Okay. Ant, you ready?
How do you think? How do you think this situation at quarterback is affecting Adam Peters? If you're Adam Peters, is the Trey Lance thing still plaguing you in any way, shape, or form? Knowing that you have the temptation of Drake May as an alternative, how do you deal with that? How do you answer that if you're in the war room?
Yeah.
And this is what has happened before. What's going through your mind right now?
So I think this question is so good, Kenny, because I could answer it in ways you're not expecting, right? Because and what I mean by that is the baseline level comparison that people want to make is Trey Lance is Jaden Daniels because of the mobility, like that, and Trey got hurt in part because he was running around, et cetera, right? Like that's kind of the line you're drawing there and how it would affect Adam Peters.
Yeah, I mean, simply because, that's what the average or casual person or fan thinks, but football.
So here would be my counter.
Adam Peters, are you if you're Adam Peters and football, are you letting that affect you?
So I would say every decision that I would, like if I'm Adam Peters answering this in the first person, I would tell you every decision I've made in my career is going to affect me. That doesn't mean that just because the results didn't come to a certain way that we necessarily made the wrong decision. Sometimes football happens. And I think the way Trey's career laid out, like obviously the injury undercuts maybe what could have been his breakout season. We're never going to know. But I would say one of the other really underrated aspects, and the reason I love your question is one of the big red flags, if you will, for Trey Lance coming out was he just hadn't played a lot of football. And so the lack of tape, does that actually scare Adam Peters away from a guy like Drake May or JJ McCarthy?
So pause right there because I think that's what should scare him away from and most people away from JJ McCarthy. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, like that is a valid concern. And so maybe it does, and maybe that's the reason he goes Jaden Daniels. He's like, forget the body type comps. Those are lazy, like players play, things happen. But I'm never taking a guy again that has that few snap volume. I could also make an argument, though, that like he had such success with Brock Purdy, a guy who is just an A+ leader. Like his command of the room, like dudes out in San Francisco love that dude. In the same way that dudes at Michigan loved JJ McCarthy. And it's actually why, like, I think Drake is almost the hardest case to make for Adam Peters. Like, I can tell you why Peters would love Daniels. I can tell you why Peters would love McCarthy. Outside of, like, the classic traits type of stuff, I couldn't tell you why any experience that Adam Peters has had in his career would necessarily lead him to Drake May. But I can tell you why Cliff Kingsbury would. So, like, that becomes the question and why I think this is so hard.
That's the war room, right?
Right. 100%. I hope they have their decision made before Thursday. I'll tell you that much, Kenny. Appreciate the call. It's a great question because it lets us talk about things in I think, a slightly different way. And to be honest, like, I don't know that I've said that the entire draft process. It's been sitting there the whole time. That's why it's fun to continue to talk about this stuff. We only got 2 more days. What are we going to do after the draft, Ant?
Give predictions about what we expect our team to go.
That's probably. Find a way to do that for months on end.
4 months.
No, well, I definitely, like, whoever the pick is, I would definitely want to have folks on who know him, and that'll be a lot of fun. And we'll see who we can get, around, whether it's any of these 3 guys. But I think that kind of proves the point, right? If you were to tell me what's the prototype of the modern, like, best quarterbacks in the league, big physical guys who move around, they have scramble ability, they have great second reaction, and that guy is Drake May. If you tell me some other, like, what has worked for Adam Peters in the past or what hasn't worked, I can tell you why it's Jaden Daniels. And I can tell you why Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn would love Jaden Daniels. It can make it work with a guy like Jaden Daniels, a great leader with a tremendous work ethic and all of those things. I can also very easily just be like, there's not a lot of film on JJ McCarthy, but go ahead. Flip that on. Boy, does it look like an NFL quarterback. Every single throw is NFL caliber, NFL quality, and NFL windows and an NFL offense. So take out all the junky college stuff from the other guys, and maybe their throw reels aren't that different in length. That's what makes this so hard. It's also what makes it fun, as long as you're willing to have some fun with it. And boy, have we over the last hour, tremendous calls today on a Vibe Check Tuesday. When we get back here on the Team 980, Charles Davis on the linebacker and safety classes, which I think are going to play a huge, huge role in how the Commanders approach day 3 on Saturday. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Every pick of the 2024 NFL Draft for the Commanders is live here on the Team 980. Do not miss our coverage following our show live from Detroit on Thursday. Turn us on at 4. Turn the Junkies on in the morning. Leave it on with Sheehan and Russell all day long. I'll pick you up at 4 live from Detroit. And then we will go right into our live draft coverage with Grant and Danny here on the Team 980. I'll join. I just found out today, this is pretty exciting news. I should have a one-on-one interview with the pick, assuming that whoever they pick is in Detroit. So if they take Jaden Daniels or Drake May, I will get 5 or so minutes with that pick live in Detroit. So definitely be tuned in for that. And we'll also post that interview on YouTube at Craig Hoffman and at the Team 980 if you want to watch said interview. Right now, though, time to let you hear a little bit more about the safety and linebacker class in this draft and a little bit more from our guy, Charles Davis, the latest episode of Take Command. Great football conversation between me, Logan, and Charles. Of course, Charles, part of the NFL Network's coverage of the NFL Draft. He'll be on their main desk during the draft. He's also part of Path to the Draft and Total Access weeknights starting at 6 p.m. A couple more episodes of that before draft day is here. So without further ado, me, Logan, Charles on Take Command, talking defense in the 2024 NFL Draft.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because I think, one of the things about Dan, when you look at Dallas specifically, is it's compiled of all these guys, like kind of converted safeties that now play linebacker, play safety, that are these more flexible, more fungible body types. And I think that's one of the things about evaluating the safeties specifically in this class. Is you say to yourself, like, wow, there's a lot of guys that could be this kind of tweener, star, hybrid linebacker type player that's kind of sweeping the NFL. And I say to myself, like, those are skill sets that you've seen Dan recently really, really covet. Are there any safeties? Maybe, they're not the top guys. I think we're pretty familiar with the top guys at this point, but you say bigger body type that kind of fits that curse role from Dallas last year, that 6'4" safety that's 215 that can match a tight end, but also play a little bit of deep coverage.
Yeah. There's this kid at Oregon State, Katana Oladapo.
Yeah, big old hoss. Big old hoss, yeah.
He may very well end up being more of the Marquise Bell, Logan.
Yeah, right. That's a great point.
Right?
Great point.
I'm more linebacker than that. But if you're talking about those guys who are a little more willowy and we can get them involved in that, I'm eager to see. He's more of a center fielder right now, but Caleb Bullock from USC.
Oh yeah.
I want to see if they can get a little bit more heft on him in order to place those things. But right now, he's a little bit more of the center fielder for you. I pulled out my notes here to pull them up because I love your question.
But the Bullock, while you're looking, I'll talk while you're looking. Because
how about Caleb Braid from Poland? Have you watched him?
Yeah, he's great. Like kind of that box player, not a tall guy, but kind of has that ability to kind of
compact.
And can cover a little bit. Look good at the Senior Bowl. I think there's a lot of players, and that's why the safety position is fun to me. Because like Bo Bright was an okay college player, but you watch him at the Senior Bowl, say, hey, that's he's matching up pretty good in the slot. You watch him fit a run, you say, oh, that's kind of a good block destruction technique. And so there's much more kind of dynamic athletes at the safety position than there ever has been because they're asked to do so much different stuff in college football. So it's kind of one of those positions where it's like, man, this is really interesting. Who this new organization values and what they value for sure. So
that is so true. But there's so many of the guys who are rated high at the top of the safety position, Logan and Craig, that are one or the other. Like we've been talking about positionless guys. The safety position this year is much more defined by this guy's a boxing center fielder. And I was struck by that going through things because Cole Bishop from Utah is one of my favorite players.
Love him.
I love Bishop. Absolutely love him. Do I believe he can be a center field safety? I do. I absolutely do. But the best plays you see him do on tape, he's a box guy.
Right.
He's up there. He's near the line of scrimmage. He makes plays. He helped himself greatly at the combine when he ran 4.45. Because I don't think I saw him as a 4.45 guy because most of his stuff's been near the line of scrimmage. The two from Georgia, for both of you, Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, all right? Both went to the Senior Bowl. and both had kind of defined roles that they wanted to do the other. Tyke Smith has been more of the nickel safety underneath, covering things. Javon Buller's been more of the back. Both of them came to the Senior Bowl and wanted to do the opposite. They wanted to show the scouts and show people they could play the other positions. In tandem, they were quite the duo at the University of Georgia. I thought they were terrific. One of my favorite players on tape, there's two guys that I really love on tape. Jaden Hicks from Washington State.
Great pull by you. Great pull.
Yeah, no, that's one of Logan's guys.
All right. And Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest.
You like hitters, man.
I like to hit. Listen, it's not just that. You turn on the tape. It's like the old school baseball when Babe Ruth hit the home run and goes around the bases in a furious, right? You know, that's how both of them play.
Yeah.
Like they are played like they are sped up and everyone else is going. And you're exactly right about the hitting. I'm glad that you and I have kind of connected on someone there, but Hicks is just one of those players that if you turn on the tape, you may watch someone else, but all your eyes keep coming to him.
Yeah, watching him versus UW is like special. You're like, this guy's playing man on a receiver on Jalen Polk in the slot, and he gets the interception. Oh, they ran a reverse, and he's the post safety, and he's delivering an absolute blow, like blowing up guard. Like his film versus UW was incredible. Like I just was like, this guy. Why aren't people talking about this guy more? And then Mustafa is a guy that they have him playing at 12 yards, and he's the eighth man in the box, and absolutely missiling to the football. And I think there's value there. I know people say, oh, it's not a physical game anymore. Like those dudes will play for you and they have a role, you know, and I think Jaden Hicks has a chance to be a difference maker. So I think those are great picks by you, guys that have really dynamic skill sets.
Well, you know, these are guys that, listen, Jaden Hicks would be one of the early safeties I think that would go. Wouldn't you think, Logan?
Yeah,
Craig?
I think so.
One of those guys in whatever bushel we put them in, Jaden Hicks is going to be good, especially by teams that want to have that box safety and beat people up that way. Malik Mustafa, I'm eager to see where exactly he's going to go and when, because you drafted, when I say you, DC drafted Cam Curl a number of years ago. And I loved him coming out of school. Didn't go as high as many as I, you know, as of course he would want to go, but was a difference maker pretty early in his career. I feel a lot of the same things with Mustafa I felt with Curl. Just an instinct about playing, understanding the game, being in the right spot. And those guys, they may not get the acclaim they deserve, but guess what? They flat out can play. And now Curl, of course, is in with the Rams.
Yeah, for sure. I think something else that's a good reminder for everyone is the new kickoff rules probably impact some of these late round safeties as well, and these DBs. If you can run a 4.45 and you can blow up blocks and you're a sure tackler, because there's going to be kickoff returns now and the style of the new rules. Logan, we talked about this when the new rules passed. Like that is a skill set that is going to be coveted on special teams way more now than it ever was in the past decade when every ball went through the end zone. And so that special teams ability was always something that you look for in your late round picks, but is going to become more important. And if you can get down the field quickly, an actual 40-yard sprint in a football game, it doesn't happen very often, but that 20, 30, 40-yard sprint down to tackle someone on kickoff all of a sudden is going to be a part of the game for these DBs.
And for at least a year, if we're starting that kickoff line way up there, hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
We're the guys who can shed and go get someone right away. Because if they can engage you, he's just got to break one wall, and then it's nothing but grass. So I think we're going to see a couple of things. Just what you talked about, Craig. We're going to see those types of players get a little more value. We're going to see these, Logan, you've talked about these bigger kids who can play hybrid linebacker safety, and then the linebackers who can run. All of them are going to get a little extra value in terms of special, because you've got to shed and make the play there. If you don't make the play there with this one, at least we know for 1 year, it's a long run. And by the way, I'm predicting that all the kickoff return guys are going to be much bigger people. The scat back guys are going to be on punt returns. The big people are going to be on kickoff return, because essentially it's like running an ISO. You're going to just ram your way through that first wall and then off you go. I'm old enough to watch the roller derby. So if you win the jam, there you go. Off you go, and then back there to get you. So that's what's going to be the fun part of watching all this. I was at the owners' meeting when they announced that the new rule was in for this year and how the new kickoff was going to be aligned. I was sitting with Pat Kerwin. You guys know Pat from
Sirius XM. Yep.
Former GM, former agent. Pat's done it all, coach. And I was sitting there. They announced the rule, and Pat goes, "Well, I bet you Cordero Patterson's phone's blowing up."
Sure was.
And it wasn't an hour. Cordero Patterson announced that he was signing with the Steelers.
Yep. Got a nice little chunk of change.
But the thing about him was, remember, and he had the green light from 9 yards deep. I think he has a 109-yard kickoff return.
It does.
But he's a big man.
Yes.
Yeah. That's where I think we're headed to. Bigger people on kickoff returns, smaller people on punt returns.
That's really interesting. I also wonder a guy like, Antonio Gibson, who just left here for New England. Like, AG's a big guy, and he was on kickoff return here, but never got to do anything because the ball just sailed over his head. So wonder body types like that, which also there's some guys in this draft too that could certainly fit that build.
He fits. He totally fits. That's why I think your point, Craig, about the type of player to make it that extra consideration when you're trying to keep someone.
Yep.
And Logan has pointed it out. If you can be the hybrid, play the safety, the J-Ron curse. I mean, this is what we're all now. It values the versatility and all that, because now when you're calling defenses, it used to be you could tell what personnel was coming in, where they were going, just like the offenses were.
100%.
That's it. That group can stay on the field, and this guy goes from this spot to that spot, that guy from that spot to this spot, and off you go. We all thought we'd see more of that in Atlanta last year, and we didn't. And that was the major surprise. Remember positionless football?
Yeah.
John's going to be here, 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 here. Pitt's going to be here, 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 here. Drake London's going to be here, 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 here. And it did not translate the way they needed to translate. They've hit the reset button. I see if Raheem Morris can unlock all of that with Kirk Cousins.
Awesome.
Had a good chance of doing it.
Without a doubt. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. I do want to hit linebacker real quick if we can. Next 5 minutes here.
You mean there's linebackers in this draft? Because the way the draft goes, no one's talked about them at all.
Yeah.
It took until a week before the draft, Charles, but you found the podcast that's going to do it. We might have squeezed it into 5 minutes at the end, but the Commanders, I think they're set for 2024, but 2025 and be blank slate for them because Bobby Wagner's on a 1-year deal. Jamin Davis is on the last year of his rookie deal. And so while they've obviously signed Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chinn's going to play box and Quan Martin's going to be in the box, some of that we just talked about, those hybrid players, in the long term, like we know that how impactful a really good linebacker can be in the middle of a defense. And if you're a rookie and want to understudy under someone, who better than Bobby Wagner? So once you get past, let's say, Peyton Wilson, who's pretty much everyone's top linebacker, whether it's as high as 36 or 44, a little bit later, 4th, 5th, 6th round type of guys that could develop in a few starters.
The guys that you'll hear sprinkled through, Logan, help me out about the guys you have. Junior Cole's again, okay? Yeah. He's going to be Edgerrin Cooper, Texas A&M. Trayvon Wallace from Kentucky. These are kind of the names that are kind of top of the food chain here. You mentioned Peyton Wilson already. That guy's just a tackling machine. His only issue would be depending on what team, like his medical. I mean, I've heard double-digit surgeries, okay? And he's not even out of college yet. So that's going to be when it comes up. But you turn on the tape, watch him play. Oh, I mean, right? But
he can rip, man. Yeah.
He can rip. My guy is Cedric Grant, University of North Carolina.
I like that you said that, man. I really like him a lot. And what is it that makes him your guy? Because when I watch him, I see a guy with good – I see good ball production, and I see just like good football player. I don't know if there's anything more than that you see, but
no more than that, no less than that. Down in, down out. Here's my comparison for him, and he's not as fast because this guy could dart. Zach Brown. Zach, and they're both out of North Carolina, so sometimes it's a lazy comparison. Zach held the ACC indoor 60-meter dash for a while.
Oh wow.
I covered Zach when he was here when I was on the beat back in the day.
Greg,
Zach was a freak athlete. His athleticism was his dominant trait. A guy that
dominant trait.
Yeah,
remember, people said, "Hey, not so physical, not this, not that." But every year he'd have 100-something tackles where they blow him up, knock people on their butt. No, not necessarily, but he made the tackles. This kid has everything that you said, Logan. I'm totally with you on the comparison and the evaluation. And he showed it at the Senior Bowl during the game because he had the ball protection for the pick. You know, he made all the plays that he's supposed to make. But he's a guy that I've just, you know, I really, really like. And under the radar is this kid from Temple named Jordan McGee. Keep an eye out for Jordan McGee because I think he's another guy that has everything looking for and somehow is kind of getting overlooked in this, mainly because, one, we haven't talked about linebackers. No one has. Right? Two, he just, you know, when you do talk about him, you're only going to talk about a certain few because it's just not a topic that's interested anyone this year.
Yeah, 100%.
Logan, anyone else you want to shout out real quick on your linebacker list?
I mean, I'm kind of with Charles here. Like it's the top, and then it gets really thin. A guy that I like is Maurice Luafu from Notre Dame. I think he's just a big downhill kind of dude. I think he's a better athlete than people think. Trice Knighton from UTEP is a guy that flashes a little bit. Yes. Right. And so, like, those are the types of guys you're talking about, and I like those guys quite a bit. But again, I think with linebackers, especially this year, I don't think it's a bad class, but I think stylistically, you're looking. If I'm looking for a linebacker, I got to look for something very specific. I got to kind of hunt and peck for it. So, like, for example, Maurice Lufu is like a big thumper guy, right? That's not everybody's cup of tea, right? So you got to kind of say, what do we want to be defensively? What value does he add, and does it fit our identity? Much like you would with running back this year, which there are some good pieces there, but kind of what is our offensive or defensive identity with these positions?
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Tyrese Knight from UTEP because I think he just made another tackle while we were talking. Okay, that's what he does. And again, he's not going to be picked very, very high. Right. And James, since you brought up Maris Leafu, don't forget his running mate JD Bertrand.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
The issue we have nowadays is most of the time we're playing with two linebackers max.
Yeah.
All right. It used to
That's
be
a great point.
Crazy, and then we go down and so on. And you wanted that guy in the middle, coordinate everything and the whole deal. Bertrand was your perfect guy. He almost was born in the wrong era. Okay. Because he was the perfect guy to have the dot on his helmet, coordinate everything, and be that guy. Now I think they might be wanting to take him off the field a lot more. So it's a different feel for him because he's right there in the middle. Leafo, they were a nice little duo working together. And I really like Bertrand. But as you pointed out, Logan, what is it you're looking for each team?
Sure.
Because nowadays we're playing with 2 and 1 more than we're doing anything else. I mean, how often are you running out there Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen?
Yeah. No, it's because they're special guys though. And not everybody has special players at the position. And in some ways, this is a more like a larger philosophical conversation, but that position, because of the demand that's placed on them in the passing game and the running game now, you need to find special players for it. And if they are special, they help your defense. I think Roquan Smith is a great example of that. But it's hard to find guys like that in the draft every year because to me, it's like quarterback. It's an above-the-neck position, a lot of development involved, so it can be pretty challenging for sure.
And, Craig, I'll stop here, but you know what's going to help bring these linebackers back into the fold where they're the full-time guys? When we get offensive coordinators and franchises that literally will line up and run the football and stay with it.
Yeah.
And the cyclical nature of the NFL says that's coming back. The numbers are starting to suggest that is,
the big backs are the ones that are down. Like if you look at the top 10 rushers over the last 3 years, each year, I'll bet you'll find 6, 7 of the top 10 were 220, 225, 230.
Right. Yeah.
The bigger back, if you're going to hey, listen, you want to play light box?
Right.
I've got that big back. I'm going to throw him at you. And let's see if you stay. Let's see what you do with dealing with him.
It's exploiting market inefficiency. That's the nerdy way to say it. The more straightforward is, y'all aren't very big. We're gonna be big.
Yeah.
Bang, done.
Thank you for breaking that down for me. I felt like Denzel. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, please, because that first thing you said, I was like, okay. I didn't go to Vandy. All right.
Yeah.
So thank you, Craig. I appreciate that.
You and your humility, Charles. One day you're gonna realize how smart you are. Charles Davis with us here on Take Command. Again, Path to the Draft, weeknight 6 p.m. You only got another week of it because then the path has ended. It ends in Detroit. The NFL Draft is on NFL Network. Don't forget, Total Access has full coverage as well on NFL Network weeknights at 7. Charles, this was phenomenal. If you get bored during the summer and want to come back, you're
anytime you guys are that bored and want This has been an absolute blast. And yes, you're right, Craig. 1 week left to see where these youngsters. I hope they all are able to chase their Logan Paulson dream and be able to have that opportunity and go out and do it. Because Logan, you did it so well for so long and with such class in doing it. And it's just been a blast for me to be able to sit here and talk with you. And I can't wait to you and Craig. And you need me over the summer, I'm around, okay?
We got you. Awesome. That's right, kid. Like Logan Paulson.
Hey, but Logan made it. And that's
10 years.
I did.
10 years, baby.
He made it.
He did it. He did it. Thanks for watching this clip of Take. All right, just Anthony, what that was? Just 3 undrafted guys talking football. Charles got a taste. He played high level college football. Logan played 10 years in the NFL. Nobody invited me to camp.
Well, if you include me, I'm 4.
That's true. You weren't on that podcast though.
Whoever your producer is, he's 4.
Yeah, William also was not drafted.
There we go.
It's kind of like the difference in between doing zero pull-ups and the difference in like 1 and 2 pull-ups. There's a wide range of people that can do no pull-ups.
Really?
Yeah, of course. There's a wide range of people, right? There's people who have no shot at doing a pull-up in their current physical state, whatever that is, and there's people that are so close. But those people that are so close are actually way closer to doing 2 pull-ups than the people that currently have no shot at doing a pull-up.
Yeah.
And like Charles was someone who's so close to that pull-up. Logan's out there cranking them out. I had no shot at doing a pull-up in this analogy. Yeah. But technically, all undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And coming up next, it's the end of the show. Wait, what? Don't you guys go until 7 o'clock? Most nights, yes. We thought it was 7 o'clock season. We thought we were out. And then the Caps made the playoffs. The Caps play tonight over on 106.7 The Fan, which means the Washington Nationals are playing right here. And for some reason that I don't understand, they start at 6:45 tonight. They have first pitch at 6:45 against the Dodgers down the street at Nats Park. So that means pregame with Charlie and Dave's at 6:15, which means our final segment where we wrap up the show, preview tomorrow, and boy, do we have a good one for you tomorrow, and tell you real things real people said in real microphones is next. Final segment as we wrap up the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Your home for every pick of the Washington Commanders 2024 NFL Draft. Nationals baseball against the Dodgers coming up here in just a few minutes. Big night tonight for the Capitals. Game 2 against the Rangers. Obviously, the 4-1 loss in Game 1. 3 NBA playoff games tonight as well. And so big old sports night on the old television. Why I just go old everything? It's a brand new night.
It is a brand new night.
On whatever age television you have.
Super excited.
What are you most excited about tonight?
I'm rooting for the Capitals, of course.
Of course.
I definitely want us to be able to, sneak one for personal reasons, but that's what I'm most looking forward to because that is the only local sports team that's doing anything. So that's who I'll be rooting for.
Well, I mean, unless you want to watch Nationals and Dodgers.
Or that, yeah.
And the Nationals, we're a couple of games away from us having to have a Nationals guest on and go, hey, are they going to be all right this year? Hey, I thought they were supposed to be bad again.
Yeah.
Because the Nationals, they started real rough. They lost 2 or 3 of the Reds. They lost 2 or 3 of the Pirates. They lost the first 3 they lost 2 or 3 to the Phillies. And then they went on a nice little run, beat the Phillies in the series finale, won 2 in a row against the Giants. Then another little hiccup against the A's, but they then won 2 or 3 against the Dodgers, 2 or 3 against the Astros. Those teams are supposed to be good.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the old Washington Nationals are 10-11. Now, that's unfortunately because the rest of the NL East is good. That is good for 4th in the division. If you're 500, you'd think you'd be a little more in the middle. But the Braves are 15-6. The Phillies have won 7 straight games. So they went from 8-8 to 15-8. That'll help the record. And the Mets are 12-10. Then you got the Nationals at 10-11. Who knows? They could get swept by the Dodgers because the Dodgers are the Dodgers. But right now, the Nationals are floating around 500.
That ain't too bad. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Nope.
Definitely will take that. The Capitals tonight would love for them to pull one out. But then again, the funny thing about the playoffs that you're just always reminded of this time of year is that nothing really happens until the home team loses.
Yep.
Which is kind of funny in some of these series where they wind up being sweeps. You're like, all right, all the home team did was win 2 games. They're up 2-0, and they go win game 3. And you're like, okay, the series has started, and it is over. Thanks for playing. Is this going to be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep?
Yeah.
But game 3 is where stuff happens. Let's say the Caps lose again tonight. They come home to Capital One Arena. They win. They hold serve. And game 4, okay, let's party. Let's see what happens. So that is the nature of things.
To a game?
When is game? I should know this, but I'm so focused on the draft.
Friday, isn't it?
If it's Friday, then I will not be there. I'm actually going to the Spirit game on Friday because that's where my season tickets lie.
Yeah, their game 3 is Friday, 7 p.m., April 26th, Capital One Arena, Washington, D.C., United States of America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big D.C. sports night. I think the Nats are back on the road this weekend, aren't they?
Couldn't tell you.
They are, they're in Miami.
Okay.
So, Nationals are on the road, but you got Spirit at home against Orlando. That's a fun one. Orlando's kind of sneakily been solid this year. The legend Marta in town. And then you got the Spirit are sitting second in the league right now. They're playing bomb soccer. So much fun to watch. And then you got obviously game 3 down at Capital One. And then we'll see what happens over the weekend in game 4.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a game 5, then the Nationals will be back here on the Team 980.
Yes, sir.
And we'll have more shows like this that we have to, more quickly than we're used to, get to real things, real people said, into real microphones. Hit the jam!
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Anthony, what show on television provides us more real things than any other television show?
NBA TNT.
Yeah, that would be the NBA on TNT. Such as a quiz for Charles Barkley, remembering lines from old commercials he was in.
That Chuck doesn't mess up this quote. Anything less. Give it to us, Chuck.
Uncivilized.
Give us your
he knows the whole thing.
Commercial voice.
No, in a civilized society, a personal grooming lapse can result in a mortified loss of station. It behooves one to emanate the proper air. Thanks to the serendipitous discovery of right guard sports stick, one would never want to be uncivilized. I think that's a commercial verbatim.
Yeah, that was terrible. After this many years? That's very embarrassing.
I'm not going to lie. I agree with Shaq. That was terrible. But anyway, continue, gentlemen.
In a civilized society, a personal grooming lapse can result in a mortifying loss of station, so it behooves one to emanate the proper air. But with right guard sports stick, one gets maximum protection, and with a plethora of ambrosial aromatics, it is virtually impossible to pick up the wrong scent.
Oh.
Well, off to the foxes. Right guard sports stick. Anything less would be uncivilized.
There you had it, man. You were right on it.
Stop it, Ernie.
Your voice changed. Yeah.
Anything else would be uncivilized.
Well, how'd your voice change? What age?
I got older, man.
Anything else? Hey, Kenny, we need to do the whole statement like this.
Why did Shaq turn that into a Mike Tyson impersonation?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Charles Barkley's voice definitely was very high pitched.
It definitely was. I think there's a lot of. I think there's a
tongue.
lot of cigars and a lot of aging.
That's probably what it was. Okay.
It probably both.
I thought it was good though.
Yeah, no, the original was good. His rereading of it was terrible.
Reread was.
He ate the sentence halfway through. At some point, I was like, Charles, are you deteriorating before our eyes?
But it was just so many years ago that he did that. The fact that he remembers that is pretty impressive.
But what did he? I actually didn't watch the video. I saw part of this and sent it to you blind. I just assumed. Did he? He was reading it.
No, this is off the top of his head.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yes, this is off the.
You
top
sure it wasn't in the teleprompter ahead of him?
I'm 100% positive. It was off the top of his head.
Interesting. This was a fun moment last night in Denver after the Nuggets win. Someone who speaks the same language as Nikola Jokic asked Nikola a question, and immediately Nikola ears perked up.
Nikola, Lakers su bili šampioni pre samo... Ciao.
The second he says...
Nikola.
Now we know how to say it.
Nikola.
Because Jokic's head goes, what?
Nikola
Jokic.
Do it one more time.
My version or his?
His version.
Okay.
Nikola.
I don't think you have to say it fast. It's getting the enunciation on the right, the emphasis on the correct syllable.
Is it the K-O or the?
Nikola.
You said it's so American.
Nikola.
Yeah, but I have the emphasis in the right place.
Okay.
One more time.
Yes.
Nikola.
Is the guy who killed Anthony's Lakers last night. Tomorrow, Linnell with us starting at 4 o'clock for a full first round mock. We'll see you then.